Hi, thank you for joining me today to talk about the new public charge rule. My name is Kelly Becker-Smith, and I'm an attorney with Sanctuary for Families. Sanctuary for Families is a nonprofit based in New York City that has been providing services to survivors of gender violence for 35 years. Public charge is a test to see if someone is likely to receive one or more public benefits in the future in the United States. The public charge test involves looking at certain past benefits used and other factors like income, family size, employment, person's health, to decide if that person is likely to rely on government support in the future. And I really want to highlight here that the receipt of benefits is only one factor. The rule requires a totality of the circumstances analysis, which I'll talk about in a little bit. One more thing to remember is that public charge is not connected to benefit eligibility. Nothing is changing about who is eligible for which benefits. This is a very new rule. The public charge rule was only introduced in August of 2019 by the Department of Homeland Security, or DHS, which is the agency under which USCIS, U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, or what we call immigration, falls under. So in August of 2019, that is when DHS tried to change the public charge rule. There were a number of lawsuits that stopped the rule from going into effect when it was originally supposed to. But unfortunately, the Supreme Court recently allowed the public charge rule to go into effect while the lawsuits continue. The new rule is in effect as of Monday, February 24th, 2020. Who will be impacted by the new public charge rule? Under the new public charge rule, there's many immigrants who will not be subject to this test, who are exempt from it. And these include lawful permanent residents, someone who already has their green card, refugees, asylees, special immigrant juveniles, or SIJ, T and U visa holders, victims of domestic violence who qualified for self-petitions or battered spouse waivers under VAWA, the Violence Against Women Act, and other humanitarian statuses like TPS, temporary protected status, or DACA, the Dreamers. So if you hold a status that you believe might be humanitarian status other than the ones I mentioned, please speak to an attorney before making any changes to benefits that you receive. When do I have to worry about public charge? The public charge test is not an ongoing test. It only applies when you apply for lawful permanent residence, your green card, or you apply to change your status from one non-immigrant status to a different non-immigrant status within the United States. So if you're applying for your green card, yes, you're subject to the public charge test, unless you qualify for one of the humanitarian exemptions on the previous slide. Also, if you're applying for citizenship, if you have your green card and you're applying to naturalize, there is no public charge test. If you're applying to renew your green card, there is no public charge test. However, if someone who has their green card leaves the United States for more than 180 days or 6 months, they might have to undergo a public charge test when they return. So please keep travel shorter than 180 days if possible, if this is a concern. Past benefits. One thing to remember is that this rule is not retroactive. It went into effect as of February 24th, 2020. So any applications, say you applied for your green card before February 24th, 2020, will not be impacted by this new rule. Anybody who applied before that date is subject to the older, more lenient public charge rule. Also, any benefits that have been added to the new rule, which I'll talk about in a little bit, that were received before February 24th, 2020, also will not be considered. So if, for example, you held non-emergency Medicaid last year, but you terminated that benefit before February 24th, 2020, that would not be held against you under the new public charge rule. What does the new public charge rule change? This is a question I've been getting so much at work recently, so we'll talk about this for a little bit. So the new public charge rule is about 800 pages long, so there's a lot of changes in there. The two biggest changes is that it changes the language from primarily dependent to likely at any time to use or receive one or more public benefits. And then the second big change is that it expands the programs included in the public charge test. So for the first point, Primarily dependent meant, for example, someone who is in long-term institutionalized care at the expense of the government, which was a much more clear determination. However, the new language, likely at any time to use or receive one or more public benefits, is very subjective. To make this a determination, the immigration official looking at the case will look at the totality of the circumstances I mentioned on the previous slide, things like the applicant's age, their health, their family status, financial assets and resources, the person's education, their work history and professional skill set, any of those items that might show whether a person is able to sustain themselves or if they might at some point ever need any government support. And the second key change is that the new rule expands the programs included in the public charge test. Two additional changes are that the new public charge rule expands when the test is applied to now include applications to change or extend non-immigrant visas. So for example, if I came to the United States on a tourist visa, I was given 6 months. I am having the best time here. There's still some places I want to go visit. So I want to apply to extend my non-immigrant visa, my tourist visa, for another 6 months so I can go see the Grand Canyon. At that point, I would be subject to the public charge rule, and I would have to show that I have enough money, enough financial resources to not be likely at any time to use or receive one or more public benefits. And then the fourth major change is that it reduces the weight of the affidavit of support in the balancing test. The affidavit of support is a document that's included with most green card applications, and it is signed by a sponsor, usually a U.S. citizen or permanent resident, who agrees to sponsor the intending immigrant and help them in case they fall in hard times. And prior to February 24th, this form alone was sufficient in most cases to show that the intending immigrant would not be a public charge. Unfortunately, that's not the case anymore. Slide 13 shows which benefits were considered in the past rule and which benefits are considered in the new rule. Previously, the only benefits that were counted in a public charge determination was if somebody received cash assistance, such as supplemental Social Security income or TANF, temporary aid for needy families, or if somebody received institutionalization for long-term care. In the new rule, as of February 24, 2020, the following benefits are also considered: SNAP, or aka food stamps, non-emergency federally funded Medicaid. What this means is Medicaid is paid by the federal government. In New York, we have a number of essential plans. We have a really great Medicaid expansion through our state that are funded by New York State. So if you have something called an essential plan, essential plans 1, 2, 3, or 4, those are not considered under public charge. And emergency Medicaid is exempt as well. Emergency Medicaid is if, for example, you're pregnant and you need medical insurance just through your pregnancy, or if you have a life-threatening situation, a hospital social worker might help you apply for emergency Medicaid, but both of those are exempt. The only one that's subject to public charge rule is non-emergency federally funded Medicaid, so just straight regular Medicaid. Others are public housing and Section 8 assistance, and still the cash assistance and institutionalization for long-term care are counted. Slide 14 talks about the benefits that are not included in the new rule. So these are public benefits that you can receive safely without being in violation of this public charge rule. Again, they might count against you, though, in the totality of the circumstances. These include WIC, emergency Medicaid, like I just discussed, Medicare, healthcare options through H&H Options or community health centers, Children's Health Insurance Program, or CHIP, essential plans like I spoke about before, earned income tax credit, and any benefits that your U.S. citizen children receive that pass through you. For example, if your U.S. citizen child qualifies for food stamps, for SNAP, but the benefit card is in your name because you're the one purchasing the food for the U.S. citizen child, that does not count against you in public charge. You absolutely can continue to receive any of these benefits. This was a lot of information, so I'm just going to recap some of the key takeaways. The public charge rule change went into effect on February 24th, 2020. We strongly encourage anyone who has concerns to consult an expert before making decisions about public benefits. Please do not drop public benefits before speaking to an expert. Please remember that many immigrants are exempt from the public charge test, such as somebody who already has their green card and anyone who has a humanitarian status, such as TPS, refugees, asylees, SIDGE, victims of trafficking, victims of domestic violence, and other serious crimes. So again, please speak with an expert if you have any questions about your status and if this will affect you. To find an expert, you can call the New Americans Hotline at 1-800-566-7636 for suggestions about where to seek quality legal advice. So now that we have all this information, what should you do now? Remember, the rule is not retroactive. This does not look at benefits used before February 24th, 2020. Speak with your immigration attorney or advocate before disenrolling from benefits that you're eligible for. There might not be a benefit to disenrolling today, so please speak to somebody before you do that. Please remember that using healthcare and nutrition benefits can help you to be stronger, healthier, and less likely to depend on the government in the future. These are all considerations that they're looking at under the totality of the circumstances test. Also, remember that the news and social media have gotten a lot of this incorrect. So rather than relying on those sources of information, please speak with a legal services provider who understands public charge and immigration law. You can call the New Americans Hotline at 1-800-566-7636. There's a link here to the New York Immigration Coalition's website. They have fantastic information about public charge rule. And the Legal Aid Society is linked here. Legal Aid, along with several other organizations, have been incredible in fighting this. They were able to get a preliminary injunction or judge's order to hold off the implementation of the public charge rule until recently. You can also reach out to us at Sanctuary for Families with any questions. Thank you very much.